Let's go!
There it is.
Everybody should remember this moment. Look, I'm gonna echo Charlie from earlier. Remember where you were when this happened. Remember where you were when you realized that the Uniparty and all of these, just the establishment, you said it's time to actually participate. And look what you guys have done.
And if anyone deserves to get tears in his eyes, it's Charlie. I think we all agree. I think Eric was shelling his money into something in the break room. No one has worked harder than
Charlie,
Charlie.
we gotta hear some words here from you, Charlie. You put all this together, my man. Let's hear it.
I am just humbled by God.
It's all good. It's all good.
Wow. I love that clip. It's so cool to see because I've been following Charlie Kirk for a while, and that dude works really insanely hard. Like as far as what he actually tries to do for campaign organization, especially this campaign, it's like he was traveling all over the place. He was organizing events. He was getting people organized for get out the vote. For conservatives, he was getting grassroots movements all across the country, all mobilized, getting them ready to find poll watchers, to find door knockers, find everybody that they could find, update their voter rolls, get everybody that was legally registered to vote, to make sure that they were actually going to prepare to vote, hopefully vote early this time. It's just, he's been working on this stuff for a better part of a year and a half, probably, at least a year now, and always on the move, always doing this stuff. And when he wasn't doing that, he was debating at colleges, he was debating at his appearances and speeches and lectures and all kinds of different events where was just him or he was with a group of people, but man, dude's just moving. The only one maybe working harder was probably Trump, but other than him, man, Charlie was very dedicated to making this happen, and it's somebody that really saw early on that well, I remember first hearing about the mismanagement of the RNC from Turning Point, and about how all the money they had raised had been going to all these fundraisers that didn't really raise any money, and they spent more money on the floral arrangements than they did on actually getting any kind of serious campaign strategies or voter integrity measures to be passed or anything. So when Laura Trump and I still can't remember the name of the other guy that were brought in as co-chairs of the RNC to oversee the some major adjustments there. That was a huge change as well. But man, it was just it was interesting to see, like, okay, well, this is definitely something to do with why they never update their voter rolls. They never do any calls or door knocks or anything. It can be annoying for some people, yeah, but it's one of those things where it's like, if you don't put in the legwork, no one's going to do anything, and the Democrats are going to, it's not about outspending, it's about, and this is, once again, something that was proved in this last election, it's not about outspending so much as it is what you do with those resources, and, if you don't have a message, every ad you put out on television that is just there slamming your opponent, not saying one thing about you, then it's once again, it's not really going to help. And that was the biggest problem with the Harris campaign, is they had no real message other than Trump is Hitler, and that was about it. So anyway, it's I was watching this episode of Megyn Kelly yesterday, and saw that reaction. I was just like, man, that's I was watching certain election day coverage, but I was bouncing around back and forth, and part of it I actually ended up falling asleep in the middle of it. I woke up after the count had been had been basically actually I take that back. I came back and I woke up just around the time when they were finally, I think it was already at a point where it was pretty much safe to say, but no one was really wanting to come out and say it until just about the time when I woke up. Everyone was finally just about ready to say that yeah, it looks like it's all favoring Trump. It's like, and now we know, that it was just pretty much it was such a landslide, and as part of the discussion today, but we'll get into that in a second. So anyway, this was just very, very exciting to see, because like they said in the clip, man, he really deserved it. He deserved all the recognition for all the work that went into it, and all the being one of the loudest voices for Donald Trump in this last election. He was such a strong voice, and as people have said before, the dude's like a walking encyclopedia. Like he really knows his history. He knows his philosophy. He knows his political theory. He knows that stuff in and out so damn well. It's insane. But anyway, that was part of that, because we're going to be talking about something that was also highlighted on that same show. But before we get into that, what's up? Hope you all are having a fantastic Saturday. Yeah, I did a little better today. Not much, but a little bit better. Hold on just a second. Let me get this situated. There we go. Okay, is that off? Yeah, okay. I think I got the camera situated today. I'm a little, I'm fine now. Anyway, yeah, I had a sort of, I finally got a good amount of rest last night. I should be fully charged for today, and should be no worries. But yeah, I hope you all are doing well. Now this week, I did have a sort of unusual sort of schedule because of the election on Tuesday. So, but tomorrow, Sunday, once again, won't be doing a stream tomorrow. But starting on Monday, we'll be back to the normal schedule. Maybe starting next week, I can actually make it on time. I've noticed that because I usually have a topic decided on about maybe a couple hours before the show. Sometimes it's coming down to the wire. I really have to make a decision. It's hard. But other cases like today, I know what I'm doing pretty well in advance. But something takes me by surprise, and just being completely candid, it wasn't that I had the clips pretty much saved, and the only thing I had to do was trim them. And the thing that was kind of throwing me off today is that the clips are a little bit longer, as you'll see, because it's going to take a while. We're going to need to kind of start and pick up the pace a little bit faster today, but the clips took a lot longer to render today than I thought they were. So that was the weird thing today, and I always try to let you guys know, like, sorry, I was late. This is what happened, and honestly, I was like, okay, what's taken long before is getting the clips. Downloading them and getting them sorted into the, getting them kind of organized and make sure that everything's ready. But they're usually shorter clips, so you just throw them into Vegas or whatever I'm using to edit, cut them up, and then render new clips, and then they're good to go. But using longer clips, it takes a lot longer to render the actual video out, and so that's what came up today. It's not an excuse. I wasn't used to having a longer clip, so it wasn't. It's kind of a surprise. But anyway, sorry about sorry about once again being late. But I am, getting back into a daily routine Monday through Saturday, and doing something that I'm seriously considering. It's like my highest priority from. For at least an hour or more, and that's just the streaming part, and then everything else that goes along before that. I'm very pleasantly surprised that even though I'm late, I'm still actually able to. I haven't missed a day that, aside from early on when I had that first major issue that we won't talk about the dark days very early on. We'll just start from the position of things coming back, which I think was what was that? It's been over a week now. So yeah, it's been over a week. Sweet. So I'm back in the routine now. It's been over a week. We're on. I don't know what to do with the old episodes. I haven't taken them off yet, just because I want to be. Want to make sure everything is up and nobody was wondering like what happened to the first 6 episodes or 7 episodes. Like, well, I made them, but they suck. So, but I haven't really decided what to do yet. I doubt I'll be able to clean them up. Maybe I'll make them private. Maybe I'll remove them. I don't know. Maybe I'll leave them up just as a sort of something kind of funny. I don't know. But as for now, it's just good to see that I had a little bit of a worry that there would be some sort of issue, something would come up and it would screw me up from being able to actually make it daily. But no, I've made it daily, as I said, with the delays, but I've still made it daily. So, and once again, mostly thanks to you guys that have been in the audience watching every day. Very much appreciated, and it's motivation to really make sure that I have my word and I show up every day to do this. So thank you guys so much for the continued views and the support. I really appreciate it. So anyway, yeah, I mentioned this yesterday, and I haven't really wanted to just focus only on the sort of left-wing media sort of meltdown that's been. I can't believe it. It's getting more and more hysterical as time goes on, not less. It's they are lashing out more and more as the days go on. It's really kind of impressive almost, if it wasn't such a pathetic display of showing how little these people know or what they're. I mean, it's no exaggeration to say that they think only about, like, as we discussed yesterday, they think only about race. They think only about things that demographic groups. They think only about in this tribalistic way about everybody's divided up into their categories, and those people should vote according to what we think they should vote about. They're voting against their best interest by voting. Well, no, not really, because when everything's falling apart, you're gonna. But I mean, it's the same exact thing that happened in 2016, and it's like, it's kind of funny that they haven't learned a thing since that election. Also, it's kind of sad because when there is a strong candidate on both sides, it makes for a much better, at least more interesting election season, where there's no real concern about questioning whether or not the next candidate is going to, learn nothing from past mistakes that were made. And that was clearly in the case of Harris. Like, sure, she was saying she wanted to close the border, but I don't believe her on that. She was saying she wanted to bring down inflation, but she showed she had no clue about how to do that. And she was saying that she wanted to make, she wasn't against fracking and she wasn't against drilling, but her whole administration had shown otherwise, and they'd been lying about it to the point that they were trying to say that there was more fuel extracted under. It's like, whatever metrics they're using, it's so deceptive. You have to look at the really fine details about what they're referencing. It's like with the job growth thing, how they've been using stats. And first of all, after the last one where they just lied entirely and made up about 80,000 jobs that weren't really actually there. But even with the numbers where they are, they're leaving out the part that a lot of these aren't full-time, a lot of these are only part-time jobs, and then on top of that, a lot of them are government jobs and not private sector jobs. It's just, there's tricks that they try to throw in to make it seem like things are better than they are, and so when when Don Lemon will approach a guy on the side of the street and say that, no, you're wrong about the amount of money you're making under Biden and Harris. You actually are making more money under Biden and Harris than you were under Trump. And the guy laughs in his face. He doesn't understand why, but the guy is completely like, so wait, what is this? Some sort of... he did, his actual words were... It was funny he didn't recognize him because he said, do you only watch CNN? It's like, well, actually, this is Don Lemon. He used to work for CNN, but I guess nobody really cares about the guy anymore, so they don't recognize him. But it was funny because it's just like a mind trick. It's like a Jedi mind trick. These aren't the droids you're looking for. Mike Lee uses that one all the time. You're making plenty of money. But no, I don't know why they go so far as to try to tell people, no, that's not true. You're not making less money. You're making more money. Okay, well, explain to me my bill then and why I can't pay it now and I could back then. It's just, it's so pandering. So, anyway. But as I was watching Megyn and Charlie discuss some of the reactions from media, they touched on one, and this is Charlie's forte right here when they got into this subject. Now, the clip they focus on, we've talked about part of this before, but we haven't talked about the substance of this before, because unfortunately, I have to subject you guys once again to The View, and I have to subject you guys once again to the pandering for Hispanic people with this ridiculous way you refer to Hispanic men, we'll just say, and I won't even go any further than that yet. But anyway, like I said, we'll get started right away because there's quite a few clips I'm going to have to get to today, and they're not short. So anyway, this was the clip from yesterday. Let me pull it up, and we'll get this rolling. And then we'll go into why it's kind of important, and we'll also go over some examples as to... well, it's reflective of both Charlie Kirk and it's reflective of the point that they're talking about in this clip. So let me get to the clip first from Megyn Kelly's show. Is it in this folder? Yeah, here we go. Okay, so let me pull this up. Okay. Okay, there we go, and we'll up, and I think, I need audio from this. Okay, so this is from Megyn Kelly, and there's more than just a clip she's going to play. There's some more discussion after that, so here we go.
What we did not have is white women who voted about 52%, right, for Donald Trump. Uneducated white women, is my understanding. You have Latino men, actually, voting more for him. And you have, and black men was not the story. We're not the story here because they voted almost 80% for the vice president. Right. So why do you think that uneducated white women voted against their reproductive health freedoms? And why do you think Latino men voted in favor of someone that's going to deport, says he's going to deport the majority of his community?
White women like being called uneducated white women. I think the economy matters, national security matters. But when you put people in these boxes, I think that's a takeaway from this race.
Okay. It's amazing. She's specifically there referring to the women, but of course it's the non-college educated men as well who voted for Donald Trump. And the nerve of this woman to whom the country has given so much to try to dump on people who didn't go to college. Look at you. Look at your achievements. How do you like the so-called uneducated now, Sonny?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and again, by the way, rarely do you get the answer to a question in the question. And her whole question is exactly why there was a rebellion against them. Yes. Listen, just because you didn't go to college doesn't mean you're stupid, and it doesn't mean that you don't have wisdom. I always differentiate between knowledge and wisdom. You can go to college and get a bunch of irrelevant facts about how men can allegedly give birth or whatever they teach. I mean, it's or about North African lesbian poetry. Okay, that's fine, I guess.
Awesome.
But I said this to our team. I said working people, the muscular class, including working women in the sense of, waitresses and women that work for Amazon. And there's a lot of women delivery drivers. They are so in favor of Trump, and they don't want to be called stupid or uneducated. And I've said this for so long, and it finally manifested, which is that it is laced into how we do our public opinion polling. And she played into it perfectly, because I've said this for a decade, and finally I have a piece of evidence to show this more than anything else, that we look at how we elect our leaders in two buckets: stupid and smart. And the stupid people are the people that don't have a certificate from Yale, and the smart people are $200,000 in debt because they went to Drake. And so the breakdown, though, is that Donald Trump, which, by the way, is just smart politics, because there's more people that didn't go to college than did go to college. And I know that's really hard for the Democrats to realize, because everyone in their circle went to college, but the majority of the country actually does not have a 4-year college diploma. The majority of the country are people that have 2-year technical degrees or community college, or they just went into the workforce right out of high school. And so Donald Trump gave these people a voice because they're tired of being told that they're stupid just because they didn't go into debt to go study something that doesn't matter, to find jobs that don't exist.
Yeah, that's first major point, which I haven't talked a lot about on the show yet, but is something that I wholeheartedly agree on, and I've been saying this even around the age that I was in. As I said, I went to community college. I didn't get any kind of degree or anything, but it was kind of, I don't know really exactly what kind of pushed me to make the decision I made, but I firmly believed it was the right thing to do at the time, and I still look back and I think, yeah, that was definitely right for me to do, because regardless of whether or not I graduated with associate an AA, associate in arts degree, I think is the basic one, where you got to do a bunch of stupid shit that I just did that in high school. I got I got a GED, and I figured, okay, cool, now I can go on to college. And when you're just leaving high school, you're kind of thinking, okay, I'm going to study something in college that'll be a field of study that I really want to study, and then I'll use that to go on to get some sort of higher education job, or higher paying job right out of college. It's like, well, no, actually, you're still supposed to do all that stupid crap you just did in high school. It's like, wait, what? But why? And this is not just now we're talking about actually paying for college courses. We're not talking about just public school, public high school, whatever it is that you're talking. Now we're talking about actually going into college to pay for courses that you don't care at all about, just so you can get an AA, which I knew so many people that are just trying to get their AA and then maybe get something that they wanted to get. It was based on more about money than something they were really interested in. And in my case, I was just like, no, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm not doing that again. I've already done that in high school. I don't need to do it again. I know what I want to go to college for. I'm going to take those courses, and I'm going to take some other courses that I think would be beneficial. So, once again, as I've said, my major was in journalism, and I essentially took every journalism course that was offered by the school that I went to. And that includes, everything from news writing, which was the bulk of my college time. As a matter of fact, as I've said, I was there long enough to actually be in my last semester there, or my last year there, actually, because when you take on the editor-in-chief position at the school I went to, you have to do it for one full year, not just a semester, because they need the editor-in-chief to be there for both the fall and spring semesters. So they always have to have the same person as editor-in-chief for both. No, luckily, I was asked because I was the other, as I said before, I was the other guy in the class that had been there the longest, and the girl who kind of was originally kind of eyed to be the editor-in-chief was kind of not sure she could handle it entirely on her own, and she asked me if I would be co-editor-in-chief, and I said, yeah, sure, I'll do that. Because we both had, she was a sports fan, and she also got out and talked to a lot of people about news-related stuff, and I handled all the incoming editorial stuff already because I was the entertainment editor, and then they put me in to also handle editorials, and so I went through all the, all the mailed-in articles for editorial we got from the campus, and I also handled the entertainment section, which had been my bread and butter since I was first there, and then she handled all the news and sports, and we then together kind of handled the rest of the paper, and we had, we had a photographer on staff, and we had a copy editor on staff, and we had everybody that we needed, and then we each had our own individual reporters that went directly to us for their stories, but I was thinking, great, this is awesome. This is exactly the kind of thing I need to be learning. And I also, took a fair share of English courses, creative writing courses, as many different things related, especially to English, that I could take, as well as a handful of other things just out of, because, the only thing I did do, which I had to kind of do this, but it was based on my college aid, which at the time, we didn't have, well, I chose not to get a loan of any kind. I didn't want to get any kind of loans. I didn't want to owe any money. And I also didn't want to have to apply to have everything forgiven. So what we ended up getting was, I can't remember the name of the program at the time, but it was like a portion of your fees are paid for, and there's some things you have to pay for, but the majority of the class, if you take a full-time schedule, is paid for. So I would have to take usually just one extra class each semester, and usually it was something that I actually thought was beneficial, like in particular one that was really helpful, and I didn't even know at the time, but it had to do with computer graphics, and that one actually was how I landed my first actual job, which was in photography and image editing, which was for a company I went on to be their advertiser, handle all the advertising work for as well. But the point is that I handled my college time by just only doing the things that I really thought would be beneficial to me, and it turned out that worked out great for me. And it was because I'd kind of caught the impression from every kind of field that I was interested in, including, at the time that I was really interested in journalism, there was a local newspaper, and I've talked about this before, but in my area where I live, we're even though we're in California, we're in a section, I just noticed the map, by the way, the other day, and I was very proud to see that I think I live in an area where it was more or less pretty strongly red. Actually, I was very, very proud, very proud. But no, there's a good chunk of California that actually went red. Everything that was blue was coastline, and Southern California entirely was entirely blue. But everything around the center, almost everything around the center, as a matter of fact, was all pretty heavily red, which actually surprised me because that can kind of flop back and forth for presidential elections. But unfortunately, there's not the kind of population that you see in the Bay Area and Southern California and such. So it doesn't make up even though, by the way, Sacramento, the capital of the state, is pretty much dead center in the middle of the state, which I'm not too far away from, actually, but that's a pretty big population area, but it's not nearly as populated as the other two areas I mentioned before. So passing through Sacramento several times, it's a big city, but it's nothing at all like San Francisco or Los Angeles or San Diego or any of the areas down there where you have really large population areas. And I've only been to Southern California a few times, and only on one occasion, and it was the occasion that I didn't really get out very much. I was around just my friends as opposed to being out in the city. That was the only time I ever really enjoyed my time there. Anytime I was actually in the city, it's like, whoa, man, this place is a little crazy. But anyway, back to the point. So where I'm at is an area where there's not a lot of heavily political people. Like that, you can go all over the city and not find a ton. Like there'll be usually local election related signs, but nothing at all. And usually now this year, in terms of presidential election season, I didn't see one sign for either candidate in anybody's yard, which was kind of surprising. I didn't see one sign for either one. Now we did have some degree of Trump stuff, but we didn't have any. Unfortunately, we had a flag that disappeared. I don't know where the hell it went. Still looking for it because I want to hang it up. But anyway, point being that there was just nothing out. There's just nothing out, and I did see once again some stuff for our mayor and our sheriff. That was it. That's about it. I didn't see anything really else, and it was all local, and once again, when you're wandering around in this town, there's not really very many. You never see any kind of large-scale demonstrations. You never see any kinds of major political messaging anywhere. The only time there was ever anything that was seriously impacting the local area, that it was making any kind of what would you call it? Well, really making the news or making anybody talk about it in large scale was actually, surprisingly, was during the whole BLM thing during COVID. And I think it was more because of everybody locked down and it was stagnant as hell going outside. There was nobody around. It's like a ghost town outside. And all of a sudden there's BLM protesters. And I think, especially in this area, it was probably more an excuse for people, not even probably even adults for the most part, probably mostly just a bunch of kids, maybe old enough to be considered adult, but still, barely young adults, and broke into I think a Target and a handful of other stores that were nearby, like a Walgreens and a handful of places like that. They were a significant distance away from where I was living, but that was it. And I think it had nothing to do with the BLM protests, and it had more to do with people just taking advantage of the occasion to go break into a store and steal some shit. And also the fact that, like I said, this was COVID, so every one of those places closed down. Nobody was there. And so it was an easy target to just break in and take whatever you want. And unfortunately that was like one day event in this city, and that was it. So I was very proud to see that, our law enforcement got it under control very quick. And there wasn't another event at all that came up after that really was had any kind of impact that even was able to grab anybody's attention. So I've been lucky about that, and I felt like this is a great town to, no matter who you are supporting or who you're interested in or what your politics are, nobody talks about it, so it doesn't really matter too much. But the reason that's mostly relevant for me is that, like, when it comes to the college situation, that decision was very easy, very simple for me to make the decision I made and go on to into the type of career fields that I wanted to get involved in. And I never heard of college itself being so politicized as I did when when was the first time I really... Well, it had to have been like about halfway through Trump's administration, because of the very major shit. Like, because by that time I had been out of college for a long time, and my brother had been out of college. Everybody had been completely out of any kind of institutional place of learning for such a long period of time. At that point, that we had no real serious idea about what had been going on as far as education goes. And as far as I know, like the community college where I'm at, they still, as far as I know, aren't really heavily. I mean, one thing about them is that it's the biggest community college in the area and nearby surrounding smaller towns. So a lot of people will, what's it called? Commute to this town to go to this specific community college, and it's a fairly large campus for a community college. It's one of the more nice and well kept community colleges in the area, and teachers are pretty well rounded and mostly very good. As a matter of fact, my first English teacher I learned more in that English class than I had throughout all of high school and from any other English teacher I ever had in any other place where I'd gone to school, really. So they had great teachers. They had more or less teachers that were not at all focused on discussing anything besides what we were learning. But I don't really know for sure what it's like now, but I can't see any signs from anything I've seen there that it's got any kind of serious ideological bend to it. Now, maybe I'm wrong, but I had considered going back to school for a while when I was. It was years ago. It was around 2013 or 14, I think, and I'd considered going back to school for a totally different set of courses, but didn't end up going. But I did end up meeting someone there who was a family friend, and kind of was encouraging me, but at least was kind of trying to go over the basics of what I would need to be doing, where I need to be going, who would be sort of the main faculty members that would be in charge of the programs and things. So I had a quick opportunity to kind of walk back through the campus and see if anything looked different. The only thing that looked different is it just looked like it was cleaner and more well kept, and that was about it. But other than that, nothing looked like it was very different. But once again, I can't know for sure. And again, this is a community college, so I don't know. But here's the bigger issue: is that when it comes to the four-year universities now, especially the quote-unquote elite universities, there's nothing about them that is reflective of anything that I would think is qualities that exist in a school that is known for educational excellence of any kind. Like, and I think the best example of that is if you've been seeing any of the information that's come out recently, the day after the election, there were some statements that came out from the schools, including Harvard, including Princeton, including Yale. Anyway, just the elite institutions, stating they were going to be they're going to be allowing people to not have to come to courses today in case you need time for to recover from the emotional distress you may be feeling at the and they also offer services if you need counseling or emotional support. You may come to our the such and such building, and they have this is where I go, what the hell's going on? When I hear this, it really makes me, this is the kind of thing that makes me really nervous. We have on offer milk, cookies, and hot chocolate, and we also have Legos, and I'm dead serious. And we have Legos, and we have people you can talk to about. Okay, it's a goddamn presidential election. The candidate you wanted to win didn't win. And you're such a mess that you are going to behave like a 5-year-old, so we're going to cater to your 5-year-old behavior by giving you food and beverages and toys that 5-year-olds would use to call. What in the hell is this? What the fuck's going on? I'm sorry, this is a joke. This is whose little worldview was so shattered. This is what elite institutes do now? They have to coddle these people? And these are supposedly going to be the leaders of our generation next that comes... like, these people aren't leading shit. These people are pathetic. You need that? That's what you need? Because of a goddamn presidential election. I mean, my God... You want to talk about people getting angry on January 6th and protesting the result. Okay, well, at least they didn't need more milk and a cookie and hot chocolate and need to play with Legos and counseling to get over their shock and trauma of the... Fuck off. Those people are sitting in a goddamn prison cell, half of them now. And these people are going to, like, well, our candidate lost, and the country's going to end. It's over. I can't believe the absolute coddling of it. These are adults. These are supposedly, they're supposed to be adults. I don't know. Maybe they're not adults. Maybe they've stunted. I have no idea. But this is not normal. This is not what an elite university does with students that can't handle an election for the president of the United States where their preferred candidate didn't win. So they have to take a day off for emotional distress. You know, it emotionally distressed me when I couldn't afford my bills and when I had to move out of my apartment, when I had to, leave tattooing because the guy I worked under was a control freak and he wouldn't even let his artists communicate with their clients. And it's like, those are the things that caused me some emotional stress, that pissed me off. But, I mean, if you want to talk about comparisons, those are the kinds of things. Not a goddamn presidential election that didn't go my way. I don't know. I mean, it's such an absolute, this should be embarrassing. Anybody that actually put out a statement like that, and anybody that actually showed up and took them up on that offer should be ashamed of themselves, period. It's like, what is wrong? How little meaning does your life have to you? And what is... I'm sorry, I'm not going to pull any punches on this. This is just a joke. It is an absolute joke. It's pathetic. And I can't believe that that's the measures that have been put in place and that we've allowed everything to go to be able to sustain. It was like when they had the congressional hearing not too long ago after the Palestinian encampments came up. And this is great because, once again, nobody gave a shit about the Jewish kids that were getting chased down, beat up, and forced to lock themselves into, closets and classrooms when there was pro-Palestinian encampments that were anybody caught that was wearing, any kind of Jewish, like Star of David or like a yarmulke or any kind of Jewish, like what would it be? Paraphernalia? I don't know what to call it. But anyone caught like that, they were prevented from going to their classes. They were told they shouldn't come to campus. They were and that's all fine. Oh yeah, no problem there. And then they get up in front of Congress and they asked them is what was the exact question? It was Elise Stefanik. It's kind of infamous at this point. Does Harvard condone or allow the spreading of anti-Semitic views on its campus from students? Is that part of its code of conduct or something? It was something along those lines. And their answer was, it depends on the context. And it's like, oh, okay, all right. What if we took out Jewish people and we put LGBTQ people in there? Would it depend on the context? I bet you it wouldn't. I damn sure bet it would say, hell no. No, that's not to be tolerated. No, people like that will be dealt with severely and seriously. And there will be swift punishment. Yeah, it's a big middle finger to Jewish people, regardless of what you think about the war. Whatever you think about the Israel-Palestinian conflict, that's your business. But as far as Jewish American students signed up to take a course to do what they're supposed to do as students for college, being blocked from entering because of the danger they face with appearing before encampments that literally praise some of them literally praising the quote-unquote martyrs who were killed, that were part of Hamas on October 7th. You look at stuff like that, and then you look at the way they're treating these people, and it just doesn't. It just blows my mind. So what's the end result of all this? Well, that's where the other clips I was going to play come up. I have a couple examples, and you can see, I would guess that these examples that I'm going to play right now, and I could play so many of these, but I'm just going to play a couple because I guarantee you both of these examples today, they're not exactly people that are on the debate team at their particular colleges. However, they're not learning much, and if whatever they're learning, it's definitely not helping them in any kind of critical thinking or to make some sort of argument that is coherent and valid and understandable, and at the same time able to absorb someone else's argument and in good faith be able to respond with something substantive accordingly. So I'm just going to play a couple of these clips. One of these I saved for a while, by the way, and I'm playing it now just because even though I find it hilarious, I still look at the entirety of it and I'm like, wow, this is someone that needs to, first of all, I don't think they really need to be in college right now. They need to be seeing professional help for learning to be able to control themselves a little bit better. But aside from that, they also need to maybe think about once again, same thing with people we've been talking about before. Maybe think a little bit further than only race and ethnicity and religion and what demographic groups. Think a little bit deeper than that. So, but anyway, we'll let me get this started and we'll talk about it on the other end. That's okay. Let's see. Here we go. All right. So these are just, like I said, I could pull up so many examples, but we'll just stick with these two for today, and maybe if it's pertinent or if it's relevant, we'll talk about some other ones, because Charlie Kirk. There's so many of these from Charlie Kirk, and These aren't ones, mind you, that are necessarily about Trump. I didn't want to just only do Trump because I thought maybe let's just take a look at, the way these people think. And, when they present an argument, let's see the way they talk about it in an actual setting where they're trying to debate their point against someone they disagree with. So let's get this started.
Hello. So from your talk, I gathered that a big problem you have is the government representing the will of the people, and you believe it should do a better job at that, correct? If you say that, how can you support Donald Trump when he has lost the popular vote twice?
Because we don't elect presidents using the popular vote. No, it's okay. You got a follow-up. Give her a follow-up.
Yes, but you said you have an issue with the government not representing the will of the people. So if you personally have an issue with that, then why do you support him if that is not the will of the people?
Right. So will and majority are two different things. Right? So are we a democracy? You're not here. Are we a democracy?
Should we be?
No, but are we?
When people answer
Why should we not be? Is that not a core fundamental point of American society?
No. Has democracy appeared anywhere in the Constitution?
She's struggling with.
That is genuinely a valid point. However, your point of the government should represent the people.
You just cherry pick this.
Why
this one?
is it that democracy is not in the Constitution, or why is it that you believe that the will of the majority is not as important as the will of the minority if your issue specifically is the government should represent the people better?
Good question. So we believe in the Electoral College. Why? Because Kansas deserves a voice. Because Missouri deserves a voice. And it's the most important way I could distill it is the union we have is the states created it, the federal government didn't create it. So the kind of price of admission is every state gets 2 senators, congressmen based on population, and then electoral votes based on that population. So you kind of get a mix of both.
Exactly.
And it's also this tension. And I would ask the question, if we abolished the Electoral College, do you think that the needs, wants, and interests of Missouri, Kansas, Iowa, North, South Dakota, Montana would be taken as seriously as New York and California? That would be my question to you.
Do you believe that some citizens are more valuable than others? Because in our current system, some people's votes hold more sway than others, because people in like Wyoming who have smaller populations have more say than places like here in Missouri and Kansas. Why is this acceptable if it's, again, your issue is the will of the people?
Because we're not a democracy. So a democracy is simple majoritarianism. So let me give you an example. In a democracy, by up or down vote, you could say, I want to enslave black people. A constitutional republic says, no, you're going to have to go through a process to do that.
Bingo.
So let me ask you a question. Do you think the majority, the will of the people, could ever be wrong?
Yes.
Okay. So the founding fathers knew it could almost assuredly be wrong, right? So the system of a republic versus a democracy is it has to be slow and arduous and intentional because it has a preference on liberty, right, not on free stuff. And so over a period of time, how do you best protect liberty? Well, you got to spread over all the representation over space and time, right? So you do it over a lot of states, a lot of square miles, a lot of acreage, and it takes a lot of time to take over the federal government, right? You have to win an election, and then an election, and an election. It's not impossible. We eradicated slavery. We gave women the right to vote. So it's possible to get change done. But the founding fathers were less concerned about getting progress done really quickly, and they were more concerned with the government doing bad stuff too quickly. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that was just
But that is
the
not
idea.
what you said. You said that your specific
Here
problem
we go.
is the
Here we
government
go.
does not do the will
Just
of the
like a
people.
broken
Why is it
record.
that your will and what you want is more
Just doesn't
important
get
than
it.
that of the majority?
Well, it's not my will, it's the framers and the system we have. But to answer your question, I believe the best way to determine the will of the people is through states' rights and states' directives. If Kansas wants to say, hey, we can have decentralized gun laws or school choice, God bless Kansas.
Bingo.
And so the question is not, it's national will also versus state will, right? So we have to recognize that the values of someone in Kansas, in Manhattan, Kansas, is a lot different than the values of someone in Manhattan, New York. It's a lot different. And so through a democracy, it'd say, hey, the people of New York City want to have firearms confiscated. I don't think that dog's going to hunt in Manhattan, Kansas. Well, Kansas State University, so I don't know. But it allows, answer your question, it allows people that disagree with one another to live in the same nation. You see, a Republican-style government, small r, allows people that might agree on almost nothing to still engage in self-government while still having a national project to participate in.
Also,
so to clarify it even more, it is...
Real quick, just to inject one last thing, too, one other point. That's also why our elections come up so frequently, because, if for whatever reason we may have gotten it wrong, like, for example, with the current administration, the people have a chance to make up for that in 4 years, as opposed to 10 years or 8 years or whatever other metric you want to go by. Every 4 years, there's a chance for a federal election for a president. The House is every 2 years. The Senate's every 4 or 6, 4, I think. I can't remember exactly, but anyway, the point is that people are regularly brought up for election or re-election, and that helps keep people's desires for what they want, to make sure that you're getting what you expected and getting what you hoped for. And if you're not, you have a chance to make up for that in a relatively short amount of time. Now, as we've seen during this administration, there's been a lot of damage done, and it's going to take a while to clean up. But we elected a new president who I personally feel can make a big difference to move us in the right direction again, after even just a single term, since he only has one term left. But even though he only has one term left, I think it's possible for him to be able to pull it off. And the other biggest thing about just my overarching point was that in this argument, you're trying to state that, why is the will not? It's important. Well, you can always move. If you think that your voice isn't significantly heard enough, which is such a goddamn selfish argument, it's so ridiculous. But the point is that from state to state, yes, the values are very different. Even if they're neighbors, the states could be very different in values, and that's why this whole system exists the way that it does. But anyway, just the point about the frequency of our elections is another aspect that I know Charlie doesn't bring up. I just wanted to bring that point up. So
it's a question of the consent to the governed. If it was just a democracy, it would be an up or down vote on every single person, and that's it. The Founding Fathers saw that fail time and time again. Athenian democracy. People just vote themselves stuff. So they said, we have to have some sort of system that realizes that if men were angels, government would not be necessary, but men are not angels, so we got to create some sort of government. Federalist 51, as Madison said. So we got to figure this out. So government is necessary, but we don't want to have too big a government, and people are just going to vote themselves stuff all the time. So how do we do that? Well, local is better than national, but you got to have some sort of a national influence. And so they created the great balance between Jeffersonian and Hamiltonian type philosophy, as we know, is the U.S. Constitution. And the one thing they all agreed on, though, is human nature. They knew that absolute power corrupts absolutely, and that people were likely to abuse it. So I would just kind of counter by saying the will of the people can be best expressed through a multi-state project. For example, I believe an election is much healthier and much more representative by requiring candidates to go to Iowa, Ohio, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and not just spending time on the coast. Because you know why? It might seem as if, we don't need those flyover states. We don't need them. First of all, that's arrogant, prideful, and wrong. How exactly are you going to feed your family, and where do you think the breadbasket of the world comes from? The founders saw ahead, and final thing I'll say is this, is that it was Hamilton or it was Madison that said, we cannot have the tyranny of the cities over the farmers. And that's built into our system. Thank you for being here tonight. I got to get to the next question. Thank you.
She's not done.
So you believe your vote should be more important than others?
No, I don't. In fact, if you want, first of all, the way you do senators is egalitarian. The way you do Congress people is representative population. And let me just reinforce this, which, again, California still has more electoral votes than Kansas. So there is a precedent. There is a weight on population. It's just done in the context of that every state gets a voice. For example, Kansas, South Dakota, Oklahoma don't get merged in just because they all look the same from an airplane you're flying by. It's a state with states' rights, its own government, its own constitution. So to push back, it's not as if population means nothing. Is that population is factored in to a national project. And I'll just say one final thing on states. You go through COVID, Europe, they had one decree. Every part of Germany, Belgium, France did the same thing. These laboratories of democracy that continually happened keep us freer. And you have a state rights project or you have a national project. The states' rights project has kept us freer, has kept people more prosperous, because if you don't like your government, you're closer to it and you can make changes and adjustments. Thank you. Got to get to the next question. Thank you. Got to get to the, I'm sorry. I got to get to the, thank you. Thank you. I got to get to the next question. I heard you out. Thank you very much. That's not the question. More vote. So, hey, do you live in Kansas or Missouri?
Oh,
because guess what? In Kansas, you actually have a bigger voice than some people in California, hilariously. Because states have rights. Because I got to get to the next question, but I don't think you're hearing what I'm saying. Thank you very much.
She doesn't care. That's the problem.
Thank you very much. We got to get to the next question.
And she's pissed. You could.
All right, so
hold on. This is the guy that really is a real piece of work. But just you could tell, like, it's not about hearing the answer. It's not about trying to understand the answer. It's that she's trying to pull a gotcha. She's trying to expose Charlie Kirk for being a hypocrite. No, that's not what you're demonstrating. As a matter of fact, what you're demonstrating is kind of the opposite, that he actually values every voice, and that was the whole point behind the idea of abolishing the Electoral College. If we were to abolish the Electoral College, the idea of our entire election system would be so ridiculously turned on its head that it wouldn't reflect the will of anyone except for the most heavily populated urban areas, which we already know which areas those tend to sort of lean towards. And up until this last election, where Trump actually won the popular vote, which is, I don't know if, I think that's another major reason why you see the media networks breaking down like crazy this time, because they can't even go back to their go-to argument, which is this isn't really the will of the people. He didn't win the popular vote. It's done. But now he did. So now what do you argue? Because it's clearly the will of the people. Well, the only thing you can argue is a combination of people being brainwashed, or of course their go-to, racism. And so with that in mind, let's listen to this upstanding gentleman and see what he has to say.
Watching this for some 20 odd years, just oh, ma'am, you've been doing it forever. Welcome to the First Amendment. I fought,
sir. Can you just stay focused on me?
Taxpayer-paid jacket,
sir.
Thank you. I brought it overseas.
All right, sir. Just ask me the question.
Already coming up.
So, what is it about conservatives and this whole racism thing? Like, you guys are always just saying that it's either not a thing or it's, just not in any of the institutions or the police department. But it seems that over the past 18 years, we've had several race riots, and the biggest one being in 2020.
Evidence, yeah.
So it's like, how are we still denying segregation in a city where we can clearly see what fucking neighborhoods are white, which ones are black, which ones are Latino, and we know how we got there. So it's like, what is it with conservatives and admitting that there's a problem and not addressing it? Because it seems like you guys want to be obsessed with, the gender thing or the racism thing, and then you guys say, it's not here, it's not a big problem. But why are millions of people rioting every couple years?
So let me ask you a question.
We can say that it's Democrats and shit, right?
Well, let me ask you a question. Go ahead. So what do you think is a bigger problem facing America, single fatherhood or racism?
Racism, by far. That's how
Can you say that in the microphone?
Racism, by far, because racism gets people killed, not single fatherhood.
Well, no, a single motherhood. Let me be more specific. So single moms, their fathers leaving the home, you think is a bigger problem than racism?
No, sir. I'm gonna repeat that one again for you. I think racism is a bigger problem than fathers being outside of the home. However, I do see fathers not being in the home is a problem.
Let's make sure we're defining our terms. How would you define racism then?
Racism is a system of oppression used by a certain group using prejudice, institutional power, and it's situated by the media, government, and all these other institutions.
Give me an example of one thing you as a black man cannot do that I as a white man can do in America.
Got you. Okay, so about 2 weeks ago, right? I went to a DeSantis rally. Got my ticket, all that good bullshit. Been to a million different, rallies of a kind, whether, I was a conservative at the time or whether I was a liberal, right? I know that as a black person, I am far more likely to be arrested for expressing my view, whether I am a conservative or a liberal. And I've done it on both sides.
He just knows.
And, oh, yes, I was arrested.
You were probably being a jerk. That's why you were arrested.
And that's the best part. And that's the best part, right? That's the best part. I wasn't even being a jerk. And the courts even found our beloved courts.
Let me make sure I understand this. So you think the bigger problem than fathers not being in the home is a abstract conspiracy theory that you have that hecklers and jerks at political events are arrested because of the color of their skin? That's the best definition of institutional racism.
No, that's not my definition on racism. I did tell you what my definition
was. Give me an example of something a white man like me can do that a black man like you can't do. Because guess what? If I showed up at a DeSantis event and started heckling, I'd be kicked out and arrested.
No, you would not. No, in fact, I even have evidence.
You know how I know that's true?
You want to know how I know it's
white
true?
Suburban kids from Highland Park, and they're arrested a lot more, actually, when you see the mugshots. Yeah.
Oh, so white kids are arrested a lot more. Could that possibly be? Could that possibly be?
Can you talk into the mic?
And I'm just guessing here. Could it possibly be that white people are arrested more because you have a higher population and therefore by proximity you are more like, because it's math, it's basic math. I know we hate math. I know we hate it, but I passed it, unlike y'all.
So let me ask you a question. How does racism contribute to black on black crime in Chicago? How is white people to blame for that?
Oh, actually, matter of fact, that's actually a whole other issue. So let's talk about, so you want to talk about intracommunal violence as it pertains to
so what does the white man have to do with that?
And that's a great thing. I love the red herring that you threw in there.
No,
because, intracommunal violence is proximal, right? So when we have segregation and we got races sitting in one area, and you got another race in another area. Now, we never ask white people, why is white on white crime so high with white people, and but instead we focus on black people.
Yeah, so out of the 530 murders in Chicago of the last year, how many were black on black crime?
Hey, I wasn't looking. But you know what I do know?
Well over 420 of them were black on black gang-related crimes. How is that racism to blame for that?
Let's talk, so now are we going to talk about over-policing?
I'm sorry, sir. You're kind of demonstrating. You can't answer the question.
Would you like to talk about? I mean, we can talk about it. We can. Are you ready to address it, though?
Well,
are you ready to address it?
Yeah.
Because we can talk about black on black crime, but we need to talk about it as it pertains. We need to.
I love that line.
Okay, let's talk about it, sis. I'm ready to talk about it.
All right, hold on. So let me just
narrow
this down. So let me just say this, okay? All right. So if you were to rank the 100 biggest problems in America, the fact that I know we're not a racist country is the best example you have. So you know we're story of you getting kicked out of a DeSantis rally. If we were a racist country, you'd say, Charlie, I can't go in a convenience store. Charlie, I can't go into school. No, we actually live in such a amazingly decent country that whoa. Let's not do that, okay?
You want to see racism? Check out South Africa and see what.
Mostly peaceful, everybody. Mostly peaceful, okay?
I didn't lay hands on you. I got witnesses. I did not touch you. No. I touched the mic.
We're gonna wrap this one up, but let me just say this.
We got racism we got racism all over the U.S. We just had a race riot 2-3 years ago.
So
in 2020.
Wait, hold on.
Oh my God! And then we had all 50 states plus 18 countries. But don't worry,
Alex. Wait, so by race riots you mean mass looting of big screen TVs? Let me tell you, it is not an argument in your favor that we're a racist country because blacks decide to start burning down Wendy's and stealing stuff. That's called criminality.
Actually, it is because you're not even looking as to why it happened. You're not even looking as to why it happened, and that's cool. You know, we can definitely play, obtuse on the whole issue. Yeah, black people were burning it down. Why? Racism. Racism was a big issue, and we can pretend that it's not a big issue. But hey, if you don't want to, then that's just called being obtuse. And that's why I asked you. Why did you have such a big problem with talking about racism? You want to claim that it's not there, and you can say all you want, but that still doesn't prove. That still does not
if you
That
want to
still does
talk
not
about
account for why
racism
we
that
have
can be
race
proven,
riots. So
let me
I
give you
guess
some
so.
examples of racism that
guess.
can be proven. How about affirmative action at this college that discriminates
There you
against
go.
Asian students
There you go.
and
He
white
doesn't care.
students?
He doesn't care.
How about affirmative action hiring
entrenched
practices in the
this
federal
bullshit.
government? We are such a decent, non-racist country. The best example that he has is to show that he was mistreated. And if he acted like this at the DeSantis event, I can see why he was kicked out of the DeSantis event.
Me too. Yeah, that I just love the. Are you ready to address it? Yeah. Yeah, he just goes around in circles and he's not addressing any points, and it's like everything he throws out he thinks is this indisputable point, and it's just grievance. It's just grievance over I don't know what this guy's backstory is, but he seems like he seriously has some kind of issue with wherever he was born or his family or something. I don't know. I don't know what the reasoning is, but I do know that this constantly bringing up, look at how many race riots there were. Sorry, that's not a race riot is evidence of racism? No, not really. It's evidence that people are willing to kind of jump on a bandwagon if they think there's going to be something beneficial that comes out of it. And in this case, obviously, looting and pillaging a bunch of stores we've seen these sorts of things happen throughout the 20th century and into this century as well, that when racial tensions boil over based on riling up certain groups of people to believe that there's he talks about segregation. Okay, explain to me why many people that are part of Black Lives Matter and people that are part of the modern suggestion that there's all this racism in America, why are they in support of all black dormitories? Why are they in support of all black graduation ceremonies? Why were they why have they been in support of all these I remember there was one for was it Memorial Day or Veterans Day? It was one or the other. And then there was a event that was being put on. It wasn't Black Lives Matter, but it was another group that was just race hustling essentially, and they were attempting to try to say that no white people can come to this event, and there was actually an interview on Tucker when he was on Fox at the time that was this lady was minimizing it by trying to suggest that white people were just complaining and acting like it was a big deal, even though they didn't really care, because they don't really care about black people, and they shouldn't really want to come to a black-only event because we just want to not have to deal with all the bullshit for white people. For this, do you listen to yourselves when you make these arguments? Obviously, you don't. Obviously, you're not self-aware in the slightest to recognize everything that you're saying is about the most divisive type of rhetoric that you could make, and it's not a convincing argument. In fact, it's so far from a convincing argument, it actually kind of suggests the opposite about who is the actual racist here. Because I don't care how many people try to make this ridiculous point that racism is power plus privilege, and it's like, no, I'm sorry. I don't care how many people try to make the point that, well, if you can't do anything about it, then you can't be that. No, bullshit. That is ridiculous. That's stupid. Do you think that, the people who are sitting around and, for example, one thing I'll never understand is how this idea of racism became so widespread. I don't think that a lot of these people have ever met or seen even a white racist individual. I've seen white racists. Believe me, White people who are racist have no problem telling you they are racist. They have no problem telling you they hate black people. They have no problem telling you who they hate. I've seen it. They can't shut up about it. And any of you who have actually seen white people who are racist against black people, you'll know, like, yeah, they once they get started, they get off on a tear. And even if you kind of lightly push back on their beliefs, they get angry because they very strongly believe that, yes, black people are always doing this and this. Like, they have terrible arguments, but they have no problem making them because they are very entrenched in it, and they have, once again, no problem. As a matter of fact, they're proud to be racist against another group of people because they think that, and honestly, in the groups of people that they usually hang around with, it makes them seem like they're more. What would you call it? More strongly fighting for the cause, I guess. I don't know what the way to describe it would be, other than like they see themselves as being right and no one else wanting to admit that this is an issue, and so we're going to shout it all the time and make sure that people know. And I've seen documentaries, I've seen undercover work, I've seen crime documentaries, I've seen all kinds of information from white supremacists and neo-Nazis and just people who are just in general just racist individuals. And white racism is not something people hide. It's not something they're ashamed of. They're proud of their white race. They're proud to be racist. So the idea of this sort of undercurrent of racism, that's all this subconscious racist bias against this and that, blah, blah, blah. First of all, even on its face, it's just not true. And secondly, if you want to make an argument about what racism is, even if you only want to look at white racism, which I would argue is so minuscule at this point in time, that, I mean, we're coming to a point in time where we're dangerously close to dwarfing it with, well, we already are. We're dwarfing it with the amount of anti-white racism that's totally permissible. And nobody wants to believe it because white people, you can't be racist against white people. Sorry, you can. That's the way racism works. If you in any way believe that your race is in some ways deserving of more, or is in any way superior, or is in any way held down and deserves more by another race, that's a form of racism. That's a form of racism, especially when you come from a country like America, where we have taken such steps to ensure that there's I mean, if you're even accused of racism in any major corporation in the United States today, you're out on your ass immediately. You don't even need to be proven wrong, or need to be proven that those claims are wrong. I mean, they're going to find out that, you're fine to fire him then. I mean, like, there's such a strong sense of not being affiliated with anything racist that this country has taken extreme lengths. And if you look at the way, this is what bugs the hell out of me, is that when you look at race relations in the United States, up until the end of 2008 to, actually more like up until the end of 2011 or 12. At that point, every survey that had been done, every type of national poll that had been done had suggested that the United States was less racist than it ever had been. Young white males and young black males were asked, I believe the question was, Larry Elder cites these statistics very often. They were asked, how much is racism an issue in your day-to-day life? And is racism something that you think often about, or I feel you're forced to deal with a lot? And the answer on both those questions, the second one, was that no, not often, vast majority from both whites and blacks. And do you believe that racism is a major problem in the United States? Once again, from both whites and blacks, it was like no. and it was a very high percentage. It was something like 92%. It was way up there. And then we got the unfortunate event, which was, and this is really, because bear in mind, this is, all in the context of just before and right after we elected the first black president. And at the time, I was, just like many people, I wasn't super political at the time, but I was very happy to see, because I thought, wow, what statement this says about the United States, a country that is looked at falsely, but looked at nonetheless as being uniquely anti-black or uniquely plagued by racist issues for so long. And now not only is there minimal racism people are concerned with, but we just elected the first black president. And, it's like, and the interesting part is, I believe that as far as like another thing Larry Elder has cited before, Martin Luther King had made a prediction that if racial trends continue to improve, then it could be within about 40 years that we see a black president. And almost to the year, I think it was almost exactly the year that he had said, from 40 years, it's about 40 years when Barack Obama was elected. So he was like he couldn't have been more accurate in that prediction. It was amazing. But then the political pressure comes in. And if you remember early on in Obama's debates and early on in his administration, when he was asked, do you believe that the negative response to some of these policies, or the negative reaction to what you proposed, is based on people's racial bias or racist beliefs? And for the longest time, he said, no. It's because I failed to put forth a policy that really spoke to the American people and really made them feel like it was the correct thing to do. And I imagine, because I look at Obama and I feel like here's a guy who went in and he probably had a pretty decently benevolent agenda. Maybe not super selfless, but at the same time, it wasn't malevolent in any way. It wasn't meant to divide in any way. But based on political pressure and a need to find a reason to blame anything else and anyone else for things that were going wrong, especially going into the second election, he started slowly but surely caving in more and more to the concept that it is because of and then you have the first rumblings of racial tensions and he just kind of kept snowballing into more and more leaning into, yes, it's because of racial division, yes, it's because of racial tensions, yes, until the time he leaves office and then Trump gets elected, and it's just immediately projection on this guy who won the election because there'd suddenly been an increase in racial tension that was starting to reach higher points. And it didn't help that, there was the rise of the sort of groups like the alt-right and things like that were really kind of becoming plagued by white nationalists, and things like that started to gain a foothold. And it didn't help, at all either that as Trump went in, no matter what he said, the media really it's best shown in the whole find people on both sides thing. And once again, when you get to the point of tearing down statues, and it's like, because this is another prediction, like people are tearing down statues, it's historical figures. Yes, they did bad things. Do you want to forget about those things? Do you want people to forget about those things? Because I think it's much better that we know about them and remember them regardless of their faults, but to always use as a cautionary tale that, don't let things get as out of control as they have been before, because it leads to nothing but suffering. And when you get to that point, but then the media, when you get to that point, and the media is now, like, they don't even care if they're representing truth correctly. They will play fine people on both sides, but they will cut out the whole statement of, I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis and white supremacists and white nationalists, because they should be condemned totally. Now, way more people have seen that clip and they know, but, it was something that just people ate up, and still to this day, people believe they used it. Kamala Harris used it. Joe Biden used it in their debates. Tried to suggest the whole fine people on both sides was in reference to, the white supremacists in Charlottesville. It's like, no, that wasn't it. No, that wasn't it. And, refusing to look at the actual statistics for demographic groups. Once again, if you have to do it, at least use it to prove a point that makes sense. And in this case, like, was white unemployment down? Yes. Was black unemployment down? Yes. Was Hispanic immigration? Was Hispanic employment down? Yes. Like, all these demographics, it didn't matter the demographic. Trump didn't care about race in terms of any of his policies. Now, you can argue the only one that was harder to make the point about was when people started talking about the Muslim ban. And as I've said before, but it may have been long ago, I might not have even said it on an episode where the mic was working correctly, so I'll just state it again. It wasn't a Muslim ban. We didn't ban Muslims from coming into the country, and we didn't ban any Muslims that lived in the country. It was a ban of, I believe, 7 countries. And those countries were, yes, predominantly Islamic, but what they don't mention is that they were also countries that were, at the time, dominated by groups that were known terrorist organizations, and also happened to harbor more terrorist organizations and terrorist leaders than any other places on the planet. And as far as Islamic terrorists, and because of the threats that were coming out of the area at the time, there was Trump made the decision to stop travel from those countries to the United States. That was the ban. It was not a ban on Muslims. It wasn't a ban on Islamic people across the board. It was a ban on people from those countries coming to this country. That was what it was. It wasn't a Muslim ban. And, you can argue whether that was necessary or not, in terms of, was that a little bit too harsh a response? Maybe you can make that argument. But once again, when it comes to national security and the president is saying that we are concerned about a threat, you should at least be able to look at that decision and say that, well, it's definitely a decision made out of national security, not Islamophobia. It's just, but they played off of that and played off of that. They never represent the actual position to a point that is realistic, and it's attempted to be spun in a way that just riles people up. And ultimately, obviously, their goal, and this is the most insidious part, is that they don't give a shit about any group, any demographic of people. They don't give a shit about minorities. They care about proving their position right by any means necessary. And so if it riles up people to take action, that's even better, because then you'll have conflict between two groups, and then you can use that as a springboard to say, look at the racial tension. Same thing with this jackass and his argument about, look at all the race riots. Yeah, look at them. You know why they started? Because of this false narrative police brutality. That's why they started. There's been, I'll just close on this to finish out the argument. The amount of people that don't know the demographics are like, it's insane, because there was once again, Larry Elder had talked about talked about a questionnaire, not a questionnaire, but like just an interview or some sort of Q&A session where there had been black protesters who had been asked the question, how many unarmed black men do you believe are killed by police every year? And there are figures like just ridiculous figures like 10,000, 100,000. It's like insane figures. When you look at all the statistics, and I'll break it down in just a second, the actual total, 6. Not 600, not 6,000, 6. 6 individuals. You know why? Because they don't really report, first of all, they don't report how many cases of police killing a suspect actually involve a deadly weapon. So if they have a deadly weapon in their hand, or if they're using a deadly weapon, sometimes that's not even included. But even if it is, they don't count things like ramming your car into police officers, or sometimes even a baseball bat. Sometimes things that are obviously dangerous, obviously can be used very easily as a deadly weapon. They don't count those. They don't count those things as being unarmed. So when they say unarmed black people, and that's also not to go into the concept of what is your behavior. Are you acting threatening? Are you threatening the officer? Which, once again, that might not require deadly force. However, in some cases, once again, they might not be armed, but they might be trying to arm themselves. And this goes back to, was it Michael Brown, the hands up, don't shoot, that nonsense. One thing that was talked about over and over again that nobody seemed to pay attention to was that, yes, Michael Brown didn't have a gun, but he was attempting to get a gun because he was shot through the hand while trying to reach for the cop's gun. So, no, he might not have been armed, but he was trying to harm himself. And so he did not have his hands up. He at no point was cooperative. And if you see a lot of these cases where people are saying that unarmed black people are getting, it's police brutality. It's maybe not even a case of someone getting killed, but being roughed up by police. Well, yeah, if you're not following their instructions, and especially if you're acting aggressive, they're going to have to use, not deadly, but they're going to have to use some kind of force. And that's just the way law enforcement has to act. Unless you want a bunch of dead cops, which a lot of them did. And that's the bigger problem, is that, like, when you start ramping up the rhetoric to the point that everyone's on a short fuse and just everyone's ready to explode, then there's nothing good that's coming out of it. Hey, Eddie Madison, I'm sorry, man, I'm about to close the stream out for the day, but thank you for showing up. I appreciate it, man. But anyway, so to close out the end of the day, that's when you see this kind of thing, and you see the kinds of arguments that are made. Try to, if you don't know, sometimes I don't usually respond when I don't know the depths of the issue. I don't know the nuances of the issue. And I think, well, maybe they're right. And and by the way, man, thank you for your constant support, man. Showing up as much as you have, I really appreciate it. It's one of my first regulars. I gotta say thank you very much. It's just if people stopped using just anecdotes as their this guy clearly had nothing but anecdotes. If you stop using anecdotes for your references and start using real-world data for your arguments, it's one way we can really make sense of situations that just are seeming like they're out of control, because in most cases they're not. It just is something that is pushed to the point that, whatever it is that their goal is, that it involves some form of conflict being created between two groups. And somebody benefiting either politically, financially, who knows in what way. But the worst part is how much it undercuts actual cases of real racial bias and real racial injustice, because when there is actual cases like that, they deserve to be treated with the gravity they deserve and not having to be undercut because a bunch of frauds have been trying to push some ridiculous claim out of nothing but greed or need for attention or whatever it might be. So yeah, that's that'll do it for the day. And and last thing, real quick too, because as you see, the argument that was being made about quote unquote uneducated white women and uneducated white men, uneducated people in general, not voting for Kamala. If this is what we're talking about for education, I have to say, I don't think that's a very good measurement of what education or an educated person looks like. And so they might want to rethink that one before they go using that statistic, because degrees that you're getting from colleges like this, I can't say I have much faith they're learning much. But in any case, that'll do it for me for Frame Advantage this week. Thank you guys so much once again to everybody that showed up this week, to everybody that watched this week. This was a big one for me. It was my first full week back since the first episodes where nothing was coming in and everything sounded like crap, and it was really tough situation to face. But I was damn sure not going to let it stop me, and now that we've moved on and we're into a second full week of actual straight streams, and we're on Sunday, and I'll be back again on Monday. I've been I've been telling people that I know, and just kind of talking about the way things have been going lately, and it's made me really proud to say that, man, we've had we're not in a space where I'm completely satisfied yet, but I can definitely say that I am off to a much better start than I ever anticipated. And so to each and every one of you out there that have showed up and checked out the stream, once again, you guys, I can't thank you guys enough. And hopefully, if you can, let some people know. If you guys like the show and are enjoying what you see, let your friends know. I'm not the kind of guy who says smash that like button and hit. That's a goofy thing for me. But I'll just say, that you guys know what to do. You guys know how to handle it. Give it a thumbs up if you like it. Share it with your friends if you like it. Just tell them about it if you like it. Because the more the merrier, and I am aiming to, as I've said before, I'm aiming to try to reach as many people as I can, and hopefully just see the show grow over time to be something that I think it can be. I have faith as more so now than I have at any other point that this is a worthwhile endeavor for me to be getting involved in, and I've been enjoying it, and hopefully you guys have been enjoying it as well. So I'm not going to be going anywhere for a while, and hopefully to all you guys out there that have been enjoying it, thank you so much. I hope you aren't going anywhere either, and we'll get through this ride and see how it goes together, and should be fun. So, but once again, thank you guys. I will see you guys again on Monday, and hopefully I'll be a little bit closer to on time, or finally on time for once. But narrowed it down by a half hour today, so we'll see. Hopefully it's a little better by next time. But I keep saying that, and I just keep my fingers crossed. Maybe I could do it. Maybe I'll have clips ready by way in advance. Who knows? We'll see. But anyway, that'll do it for me. Thanks again, guys. Have a fantastic Sunday, and I'll see you guys again on Monday. Until then, my name's Corey Dean. This is Frame Advantage, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.
I can't read it. There's no words on it.
Okay.
There's no words there. To play us out. What does that mean? To play us out. What is? For credits.